Algeria International. It's time for the news.
President of the Republic Abdelmadjid Tebboune today presided over the Council of Ministers devoted to the examining of the compensation to be granted to some categories of the education sector. And Algeria reaffirmed her commitment to contribute to the efforts aimed at pulling efforts to support the Common African Position to reform the Security Council. And as efforts continue to try and secure a cessation of hostilities in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation has pursued its bombardments, claiming more lives. And those were the major developments. Now the Food News edition. Good afternoon. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has chaired over a meeting of the Council of Ministers pertaining to different sectors, and notably education, digitization, pilot farms, the national strategy regarding the irrigation system, as well as the 2024 pilgrimage. The President of the Republic expressed his sincere condolences and his compassion to the USM Naba team and the family of the supporter who died in a tragic bus accident, wounding several people among the team's supporters, and praying God the Almighty to fill the deceased with His holy mercy. President of the Republic has also affirmed that the martyrs and veterans will always be a role model for Algerians, emphasizing that their eternal memory protects the united and indivisible Algeria and infuses in Algerian people's soul national cohesion. In his message on the occasion of the National Martyrs' Day, the President said the celebration of national holidays immortalizes our glorious liberation revolution, filling us with a sense of pride in belonging to Algeria. He said, "Today we remember the sacrifices and hardships endured by those who dedicated their body and soul to the nation." He said Algeria's martyrs and veterans brought glory to Algeria, allowing her flag to fly high and its national anthem to be heard out loud. The National Martyrs' Day is an opportunity to meditate on the historical challenges that the Algerian people took up with faith and patience when they declared the November Revolution to bring victory and colonization. He said Algeria is being built currently in tribute to the martyrs' sacrifices, assuring that whatever the steps taken and the achievements obtained, we remain aware of the scale of the challenges we still have to face together. Meanwhile, the President of the Republic said Algeria made socio-economic achievements and her voice remains respected at the international level thanks to the reliability and credibility it enjoys, as well as the various strategic partnerships it has concluded. The President said Algeria is moving forward with sure steps in its national construction process with the participation of her children and is fully determined to elevate it to the level of her historic glory. The President ended his message by paying tribute to the Algerian martyrs and congratulating the veterans on this day. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and Algeria has reaffirmed her commitment to contribute to the efforts aimed at pulling international efforts to support the Common African Position to reform the Security Council, calling for a reform project that is global, balanced and integrated. Speaking at the meeting of the AU Committee of 10 pertaining to the reform of the Security Council in his capacity as representative of the President of the Republic, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, reiterated Algeria's support for the conclusions of the Oyala Summit and her willingness to contribute with sincerity and loyalty to collective efforts aimed at mobilizing more international support for the African Common Position and to work in coordination with African countries to achieve tangible progress in the negotiation process under the aegis of the UN organization.
Algeria affirms under the guidance of President Abdelmadjid Tebboune her commitment to pursue her full integration as an efficient actor in the common efforts aimed at finding African solutions to African issues. It is a commitment enshrined by Algeria as part of her current mandate at the UN Security Council, where she is working on advocating the priorities of our continent, its causes, of justice, as well as its legitimate aspirations characterized by sincerity, loyalty and faithfulness.
وإخلاص ووفاء.
The Algerian diplomacy chief affirmed that Algeria wants to work closely with the Republic of Sierra Leone with the Security Council to hold a high-level ministerial meeting among the Group of 10 and the 5 permanent member states. Algeria called on the Committee of 10 to focus on 3 priorities, the first being the need to confront the various attempts aimed at undermining the reform process or weakening the common African position. The second priority is to call for implementing a comprehensive, balanced and integrated reform project that goes beyond expanding membership and must include all thematic questions pertaining to the working methods of the Council and dealing with the various questions included in its agenda. The third priority is imperative to comply with the mandate of the UN General Assembly and to draw inspiration from the governmental negotiations with the unifying and consensual character of the reform of the Security Council. The Algerian diplomacy chief also recalled that Algeria will host the 12th ministerial meeting of the Committee of 10 next June in Algiers.
Algeria aspires to hold the 12th ministerial meeting of the Committee of 10 next June in Algiers as a new opportunity to make an assessment of the negotiations process and adapting its working strategy to the latest development that can be included in the international renewed interest in the reform of the Security Council.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has said during the 8-week-plus group ministerial meeting in Addis Ababa that defending all just causes in the world, notably the Palestinian and Sahrawi causes, should stay intact, vivid and unwavering.
It is very encouraging to see that the A3 is working steadfastly towards taking the lead on files that represent an important interest for Africa and the Caribbean regions. As we speak, Algeria has grabbed the pen to draft a resolution on the ceasefire in Gaza. I take this opportunity to thank the A3 Plus for its strong support, which has given a vigorous boost to our initiative. We must fiercely push back all attempts of silencing the Security Council in face of the ongoing genocidal acts, forced displacement and denial of the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people to statehood against all odds. Our defense of the Palestinian cause and for all the just causes in the world, including in the Western Sahara, must remain intact, alive and unwavering.
Earlier, the Algerian diplomacy chief met with his Ethiopian counterpart, Taye Atske Selassie, with whom he discussed the current challenges facing the African continent, in addition to regional and international issues of common concern. We're still with the activities of the foreign minister, and he was received in Addis Ababa by the Tunisian Prime Minister Ahmed Hassani on the sidelines of his participation as representative of the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, to the 37th session of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union. During the meeting, the two parties reviewed the brotherly cooperation and privileged partnership relation existing between the two brotherly countries, hailing the increasing dynamic recorded recently in line with the instructions of the President Abdelmadjid Tebboune and the President Kais Saied. In addition, the two parties hailed the sustained pace of the supervision and the implementation of the results of the last Algerian-Tunisian Grand Joint Commission, which was held in Algeria in October 2023, as well as the content of the ambitious roadmap adopted by the interior ministers of the two countries on January 2024 during the first session of the Bilateral Commission of the Development and Promotion of Border Regions. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and as part of the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghaith, stressed that the current aggression perpetrated by the Israeli occupation authorities towards the Palestinian people was a reflection of the inability of the international community to put an end to this aggression.
This barbaric war reflects the incapacity of the international community to put an end to this aggression despite the international pressure and calls expressing rejection to the war crimes. On the other hand, the war awoke the spirits and unified the positions of Palestine-supportive countries, the countries that are against colonization. We held all the African positions who remained faithful to the fundamental values, international legality and human rights. Today we say it clearly, these positions should last until the end of colonization and the establishment of a Palestinian state.
On the sidelines, the African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki Mohamed emphasized in his speech that South Africa's request to the ICJ recalled Nelson Mandela's values for the freedom of Palestine from colonialism.
Il me plaît dans ces cadres d'exprimer ma satisfaction.
I am pleased in this context to express my satisfaction at the double judiciary and ethical reaction of South Africa. Its request to the International Court of Justice finds all its foundations in the unwavering dedication of Africa to such values. They recall with strength and resonance the voice of Nelson Mandela when he affirmed, as we are all well aware, that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Palestine. The decision just taken by the International Court of Justice extends the relevance of the action and sounds like a victory, not only for South Africa, not only for Africa, but also for all the countries who demonstrated their unwavering support to the just cause of the Palestinian people.
Leur indéfectible soutien à la juste cause du peuple palestinien.
And that was the African Union Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki Mohamed. And the heads of state and government of the African Union have resumed their meeting in Addis Ababa as part of the 37th session of the AU, placed this year under the motto Educated in Africa Adapted to the 21st Century. The African leaders will tackle the problematic of education, examine the reform of the AU bodies, and notably the implementation of the Agenda 2063 and the activation of the African Force. They will also discuss several other regional and international issues, notably the Palestinian issue and the security situation in Africa. A symposium on international positions on the Zionist aggression against Gaza has been organized here in Algiers by the National Liberation Front on the occasion of the National Martyrs' Day. During the meeting, the main role of Algeria in favor of the Palestinian cause was highlighted, notably at the Security Council through its efforts aiming to end the genocide perpetrated by the Israeli occupying authorities against the Palestinian people in Gaza. The chargé d'affaires of the South African Embassy to Algiers, Patrick Selo, hailed Algeria's commitment in defending the causes of Palestine and Western Sahara.
We'd like to applaud the government and the people of Algeria, led by President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, for the sterling work in support of the Palestinian cause. Algeria has put the question of Palestine, including the question of Western Sahara, as part of its priority agendas during its mandate as a member of the non-permanent member of the Security Council. And we guarantee Algeria our full support.
That was the chargé d'affaires of South Africa's embassy to Algiers. And to the Middle East now, as efforts continue to try and secure a cessation of hostilities in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation has pursued its bombardments, claiming more lives. Details with Miriam Barshi.
Palestinian sources said 127 people were killed during the past 24 hours in the Israeli bombardments targeting the central area of Deir el-Balah and Khan Yunis in the southern part of the enclave. In this respect, the World Health Organization (WHO) said that Al Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis was no longer operational on account of fuel and electricity shortages caused by the relentless Israeli strikes. In a message posted today on X, the organization Director General stated neither yesterday nor the day before the WHO team was authorized to enter the hospital to assess the patient's state and the medical needs. Earlier, the Médecins Sans Frontières described the situation inside the hospital as chaotic and disastrous after the medical staff and many patients had been forced to evacuate following an assault on facility. one of the 11 hospitals that was still functioning out of the 36 existing in the Gaza Strip before the conflict. Palestinian sources put out over 28,800, the number of people killed in the Israeli relentless bombardments of Gaza. Meanwhile, Qatar's Prime and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani insisted on the necessity to stop immediately and without any preconditions the Israeli acts of aggression on the Gaza Strip. Addressing a press conference held outside of the Munich Conference on Security, he deplored the extremely disastrous humanitarian situation in Gaza, particularly in the southern town of Rafah, where about 1.5 million Palestinians are massed. This came as Algeria submitted a draft resolution to the UN Security Council on the situation in Palestine, notably in the Gaza Strip. The draft resolution to be submitted to the Council's vote on Tuesday calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, which is confronted to an all-out offensive for more than 4 months now. In the meantime, demonstrations were held in Madrid and Washington to protest at the Israeli continued bombardment of Gaza.
And now, in line with the upcoming gas exporting countries summit to be held in Algiers, many experts say that Algeria has a solid experience in the gas industry. The details with Mariam Barshi, who is now with me in the studio. Hi, Mariam.
Hi, Asia. Many experts agree that Algeria enjoys a solid experience in the gas industry that could be shared in addition to her significant gas reserves that could contribute to stabilizing the world market. In this connection, energy expert Mohammed Said Baroul affirmed that the 7th summit meeting of the heads of state of the gas exporting countries forum GECFF, slated for February 29th here in Algiers, was of major importance as it takes place within a particular energy and geopolitical context. He was quoted by the news agency APS as saying that the decisions of the COP28 that granted with difficulties a suspension to gas as fuel to be used during the transitional period. This, he went on to say, will allow the resource to be replaced on the world energy market for the coming years thanks to a sustained demand. In a similar move, Jordanian energy expert Mahmoud Salami said he expected the forthcoming GCF meeting would be crowned with success and thanked Algeria for hosting the event. Asked about his expectation about the forum, he had this to say. The forum is a source of pride for Algeria and will mark a decisive turning point in the world towards the creation of a gas organization that resembles OPEC, which will constitute a turn in world politics and in the role that gas plays in the global sphere, and beyond that, the role that Algeria plays in the field. Algeria is an essential gas and oil producer, and which has always been a dove of peace both in OPEC and in the forum or in any other peace forum in the world. I think that this forum will support Algeria's role as the main gas producer and will consolidate the role of gas as a gateway to the energy transition from fossil energies to renewable energies. Gas has positioned itself as an essential resource, considering the increase in consumption, and is key for the energy transition. The world gas consumption is expected to increase to reach 26% by 2050. Gas is also praised as clean resources, as it is having a major impact on the environment on account of low carbon emissions in comparison with other fossil energies. Back to you, Asia.
Thank you, Mariam. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, 14 hours, 48 minutes, Algiers time, and time now for the headlines. 14 hours, 48 minutes, Algiers time. And the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, today presided over the Council of Ministers, a meeting devoted to different sectors. Algeria has reaffirmed her commitment to contribute to the efforts aimed at pulling further international efforts to support the common African position to reform the Security Council, calling for a reform project that is global, balanced and integrated. And as efforts continue to try and secure a cessation of hostilities in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation has pursued its bombardments, claiming more lives. And now, on the occasion of the National Martyrs' Day, I invite you to listen to this program devoted to this event. You still listen to Radio Algeria International. We're sorry for this technical failure. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and on the occasion of the National Martyrs Day, we have a program dedicated to this event. It is compiled and presented by Mohammed Barazwan on the occasion of the Martyrs Day, which is February 18. And more in our news. There was a press conference held outside the Munich Conference on Security, where they deplored the extremely disastrous humanitarian situation in Gaza, particularly in southern town of Rafah, where about 1.5 million Palestinians are massed. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International.
The lofty Algerian revolution wrenched independence from colonial France.
بلادي بلاد الأمان الأمان أغني علاك بأي لسان.
Algeria won independence from France in 1962 after a bitter revolutionary war that cost more than 1.5 million glorious Algerian martyrs.
جلالك تقصر عنه اللغة ويعجزني فيك سحر البيان.
The French troops had invaded the country in 1830 from the locality of Sidi Frej on the western coast of the captured Algiers.
أول بلد استعمر هو الجزائر وآخر بلد تخلص من الاستعمار هو الجزائر. فجمال الجزائر أغرى حتى المستعمرين فلم يريدوا الخروج منه ولم يريدوا أن ينسوا ما ذاقوا به من نعم.
By the time the colonial occupation was complete, Algeria's population had dropped from 6 million to about 3.5 million, a colonial genocide caused by mass killings, endemic disease, and utter poverty. Soon the country's most fertile lands were seized by colonial settlers, mostly for wine production. In 132 years of harsh French colonial rule, settlers developed a luxury lifestyle, and a stream of high-grade products went back to metropolitan France.
وهام بك الناس حتى الطغاة وما احترموا فيك حتى الزمانة وأغريت مستعمريك فراحوا يهيمون في الشرق بالصولجان.
But colonialism was a sheer disaster for the Algerian people. For example, in 1950, the literacy rate stood at 10% among the oppressed Algerian population. In 1830, it had been over 40%.
ولم يبرحوا الأرض لما استقلت شعوب ولم تستكن للهوان.
The National Liberation Front, FLN, started in 1954 as a small minority in the national movement that was committed to armed confrontation with colonial France.
وزلزلت الأرض زلزالها وضج لغاصبك النيران.
But the devastating violence of the French response to its early actions built popular support. Soon it became the dominant nationalist organization. Internal debates about how it was fighting for and how to win came to a head at the organization's Soumam Congress held in August 1956. It established a militant agenda calling for a social republic after Algeria's accession to independence, with serious social and economic reforms.
إليك صلاتي وأزكى سلامي بلادي بلادي بلاد الأمان الأمان.
لتعيش حرا طول الزمن وطني 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 طال الثمن طال الثمن روحي مالي نفسي بدني روحي مالي نفسي بدني.
And he determined to take the liberation fight to the country's cities and towns. It was now that the Battle of Algiers began, employing both hit-and-run attacks against French colonial targets and worker strikes in the capital, where many Algerians lived crammed into the packed alleyways of the Kasbah. An 8-day strike paralyzed the city in January 1957, but was partially broken by brutal repression meted out by the French colonial army. The colonial war machine beefed up the heinous repression in March 1957, and numerous nationalist leaders were hunted down, savagely murdered, and forced into exile. But the brutality of the colonial repression won increased support for the Algerian Mujahideen, or freedom fighters. The armed revolution against colonial occupation pulled in and involved wider layers of Algerian society. Men and women were forced to re-examine their relationships. The post-independent government estimated that over 12,000 Algerian women had actively participated in the struggle for national liberation, with about 3% of these brave women fighting in combat.
ما بقى استعمار في بلادنا نكسر سيف الظلم في الحروب هالقوة الشجعان ضحت الرجال في الغيب والصحراء وجبالنا تحيا الجزائر حرة ويحيا الشبان تحيا الجزائر حرة رجال ونسوان تحيا الجزائر حرة رجال ونسوان.
After the famous Battle of Algiers, the FLN strategy shifted to military confrontation in close coordination with the ALN, the National Liberation Army, which dealt severe blows to colonial forces in various parts of the country. The revolution became controlled from above. Urban trade unionists and students were encouraged to leave their places of work to join the liberation fight in the countryside as part of the global struggle against the oppressive colonial yoke. Yet it was the massive pro-independence demonstrations in December 1960 and 1961 that further brought the French authorities to negotiate with GPRA representatives, and what was known as the Evian Agreements was signed. Algeria's hard-won independence was finally sealed on July 5, 1962, after unflagging resistance, untold sufferings, and huge sacrifices. The glorious Algerian Revolution waged against